How do you go from one of football's most legendary players
Ronaldinho! 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 Ronaldinho!
to having $7 and behind bars of South America's most dangerous prison?
Ronaldinho Gaucho was arrested in Paraguay on Friday.
Well, Ronaldinho's tragic story began during his childhood, because he was born into one of Brazil's most dangerous cities, where just walking down the street could get you. But Ronaldinho's mom and dad only made enough money for him and his siblings to live there in a wooden shack. So right from birth, it was completely up to Ronaldinho to pave his entire family a way out. But if it wasn't for his family, he wouldn't have gone pro in the first place. See, there was one thing that brought this family together. But the problem was, Ronaldinho's parents were so poor, they couldn't even buy him shoes. So Dad lied and said that to become a star football player, it was actually better to practice barefoot. And maybe Dad was right, because Ronaldinho's older brother Roberto was just 16 years old and already becoming the favela's football prodigy. So Ronaldinho listened. After all, he was just trying to make Dad proud. And Roberto was willing to help Ronaldinho every step of the way. Every single day, he was in the streets and in the backyard, helping Ronaldinho practice, because they both had dreams of going pro for their dad. And Dad knew his boys were special, so whenever he clocked out of work, he dedicated every second of his life to training with the boys. And not long after, it happened. While Roberto was playing for Grêmio, all Dad's drills turned him into a star. So Grêmio came in with the deal of a lifetime. They not only gave Roberto a signing bonus, they bought the entire family a house in the suburbs with a pool. So it was official. Roberto saved the family. And after moving out of the ghetto, all Roberto could do was thank God his dreams came true. So on his 18th birthday, the family planned a celebration. And when Roberto was coming home from practice, he realized all of Dad's sacrifice actually paid off. But right when Roberto walked through the door,
911, what is your emergency?
We need an ambulance!
What's happening?
My dad's unconscious!
Help is on the way.
it turned out Dad fell into the pool and had a heart attack. But the doctors had hope. They rushed him to the ER and were doing everything they could. The boys just couldn't believe it. Their idol was gone. Dad worked every day and sacrificed all of his time just to give them a chance to go pro. So they dedicated everything to the sport. For him. And right then and there, Roberto became the man of the house. It was completely up to him to keep food on the table. And even though Ronaldinho was only 8 years old, he was willing to do whatever it took to help. So he started playing football where his brother started. And even though he was the team's youngest and smallest, he came in with never-before-seen dribble moves that stunned everybody. But even though Ronaldinho was on a mission, the spotlight was on Roberto. And even with the family's weight on his shoulders, he carried Grêmio to 3 consecutive state titles. So he caught the eyes of Brazil's national team and was offered an opportunity to play for his country. But right before he accepted the offer, he still had a game left with Grêmio, and he dedicated that game to Dad. But that's when he suffered a knee injury that ruined his career. Right then and there, Roberto felt his entire world come crumbling down. And knowing he'd never be the same player, he felt all Dad's sacrifice went to waste. But after all, the entire family was depending on him. So he knew there was only one option: Ronaldinho. Roberto committed to becoming his manager to guarantee Ronaldinho didn't make his same mistakes. Because if he didn't make it, the family was over. But Ronaldinho was ready. He dedicated all of his teen years to the game, and he developed passing, dribbling, and accuracy unlike any player ever. I'm talking at one point, he led his team to a 23-0 victory, scoring all 23 goals. So it was clear, Ronaldinho, he was built different. And that's why in 1998, Grêmio's senior squad signed him, officially making him a pro. Ronaldinho did it. This is what he worked his entire life for. And finally, he was finishing what Roberto started. But even with success coming his way, it was hard for Ronaldinho to celebrate. He knew what happened to Roberto. And just thinking back and how Dad would never be in the stands cheering was heartbreaking. After all, Ronaldinho was doing all of this for him. But now he realized just making it this far could never be enough. He needed to go down in history, but that's what led to his downfall. Because after playing 4 years with Grêmio's pro squad and representing Brazil in the Confederations Cup, where he was the tournament's best player, Ronaldinho started attracting some of the world's most prestigious clubs. And in 2001, he committed to a 5-year, $5 million deal with PSG, and he was about to put the world on notice. With the spotlight on him, Ronaldinho started the season coming off the bench. But after going on a tear, scoring goals in 4 straight games, he earned himself a starting spot. And from that point on, he dominated the rest of the year. But as great as he was becoming, PSG's manager noticed Ronaldinho had a huge problem. Now that he became a millionaire and undoubtedly a star player, training camp and practices stopped being a priority, all because of his addictions. He started taking flights across the country or hitting the club to party every single night. And it got to the point where Ronaldinho would only show up for football on game days. But PSG had a zero-tolerance policy, and in 2003, they vowed to transfer him. But all along, this was deep down what Ronaldinho needed. And that year, Ronaldinho had every big club wanting a piece of it. So when it came to decision day, he looked back to all of his dad's advice and knew Dad wanted to see him with Barcelona. So the decision was easy, and Ronaldinho vowed to become the world's greatest football player for Dad.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road all on my own. I'ma be the greatest, write my name in the stone. Write my name in the stone. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Write my name in the stone. Cause I'm coming back home. Cause I'm coming back.
This Ronaldinho was on another level. His footwork was unmatched by any player ever, and through record-breaking performances, he earned 2 FIFA Player of the Year awards, a Golden Ball, and even starred in a Nike commercial that became YouTube's first video ever to hit 1 million views. This man was becoming more than an athlete. He was an entertainer. But knowing that even all of that wouldn't bring Dad back was tearing Ronaldinho apart. And Barcelona got very concerned because they found out that behind the scenes, Ronaldinho was coping by drinking every single day. Vodka, whiskey, gin. Ronaldinho's friends admitted there'd be days he'd drink from one morning to the next. And at this point, even Ronaldinho knew he had a problem. I mean, in his contract negotiations, he was trying to get clearance to skip practice just so he could party. So this was the beginning of the end. But instead of just falling off, Ronaldinho promised Barcelona he'd train up their next guy in line before it was too late. He saw Lionel Messi come in at a young age as this shy kid from the struggle. So Ronaldinho made Messi feel at home. And knowing Messi had potential to one day become even better than him, he handed Messi his own jersey number, because these two were slowly becoming brothers. But even though Ronaldinho was committed to training Messi, Barcelona saw Ronaldinho showing up to practice drunk. And they didn't want that bad influence rubbing off on the face of their future. So even though Ronaldinho was Messi's role model, in 2008, Barcelona broke the news that they weren't re-signing Ronaldinho. And this hurt him, because while playing for Barcelona, it was the first time in Ronaldinho's life he was happy. Every night, being able to put smiles on fans' faces, it made him feel like he was part of something bigger than himself. But after winning every major trophy, it was more than Ronaldinho had ever planned, so he started to lose focus. He was training less, partying more, and it completely took over his life. Nobody was ever questioning if Ronaldinho had the talent, but the late nights caused Ronaldinho to fall out of shape. And at the end of the day, him losing his dad was a void only alcohol could fill. So that year, once he stepped into contract negotiations with AC Milan, yeah, he committed to reviving his career, but he was trying to make deals with the club to literally let him party. But thanks to his celebrity status and undeniable talent, Milan still gave him a chance. Cause they knew this move was either gonna be his career's rebound or his downfall. And he did come in motivated. But it didn't take long to see. To Ronaldinho, it was no longer about football. Over the next few years, he bounced from team to team, and by 2015, he was out of football for good. But what people didn't realize was, Ronaldinho wasn't chasing the glory. He just wanted to feel like he belonged. And with everyone constantly putting him down because of his habits, it caused him to lose his love for the game. So he fell into a crippling depression that could only be revived by partying. Cause that's where he felt togetherness until it nearly cost him his life. Once his football career was over, his decisions only got worse. With no money coming in, the partying never stopped. And drinking morning till morning, it comes with a price. So in 2015, now, crashing your car into a ditch, that should have been a wake-up call. But just seeing Ronaldinho at that moment, it was clear he wasn't right. Everyone expected a guy who at one point was a worldwide phenomenon to be happy. But the truth was, Ronaldinho wasn't getting the help he desperately needed. So the drinking continued, and things got way worse. He started refusing to pay his bills, got involved in sketchy business schemes, and constructed a pier at his lake house illegally. So eventually, the courts had to step in because he was being sued. And they found out Ronaldinho wasn't paying his taxes. He had unpaid debt worth over $1 million, and he was nearly bankrupt. Ronaldinho went from $90 million to a bank account with $7. So they seized all of his properties, classified him as a flight risk, and literally took away his passport. So at this point, Ronaldinho was at rock bottom. But that's when him and Roberto made their biggest mistake.
Former Brazilian forward Ronaldinho Gaucho was arrested in Paraguay on Friday
on suspicion of using fake passports to enter Paraguay.
And Ronaldinho wanted to travel from Brazil to Paraguay for a charity event. The thing is, he doesn't have a Brazilian passport anymore because he had issues with his taxes and money and stuff. So in Brazil, they took his passport away.
They were questioned by law enforcement for more than 7 hours on Thursday after they were found in possession of adulterated Paraguayan passports.
If you actually look at the photo of Ronaldinho's passport, the new one, it's actually a Paraguayan passport. And I think Ronaldinho is probably known well enough in South America for anyone at the customs to look at it and say, this guy is not Paraguayan.
Ronaldinho was behind bars and being faced with 5 years jail time. So he knew his life needed to change. And luckily, during the time he was waiting things out, he was allowed to be around other inmates and went back to his roots, playing friendly games of football. But after all, he was spending his 40th birthday in a cell, eating cake and barbecue by himself. This was not what him and Dad ever talked about. But after being in prison for 32 days, Ronaldinho got lucky. The judge must have been in a great mood, because he granted Ronaldinho a second chance. All it was gonna cost him was $1 million and house arrest. Otherwise, Ronaldinho was facing 5 years in maximum security prison, so he felt he had no choice, and agreed. Now, despite him being in debt nearly $2 million, prison was officially the wake-up call he needed. Because as soon as Ronaldinho was released, he vowed to turn his life around. Like never before, Ronaldinho became a savvy businessman. And over the next 4 months, he became a football promoter, opened a rap studio, went completely sober, and launched his own brand of organic gin. This man was even featured in commercials. He got an exclusive video game deal, and he even got a chance to create his own team in FIFA 21. This man went from stepping out of prison with just $7 to 4 months later, once again becoming a millionaire. But more important than all of that, Ronaldinho began production on his own movie, and during the process, he found his life's calling. Ronaldinho looked back on his life and realized he was never chasing the right goal. He thought all along the dream was to become a pro football player, and that would have filled the void. But the honest truth, Dad would have loved him either way. What Ronaldinho needed to chase was happiness. And for the first time in his 40 years, all he could say was, a difficult stage is coming to an end. Thank God. I have no words to thank you all for the care and support I've received. And that's what led to the title of his movie, Ronaldinho, the happiest man in the world.